chapter of Genesis. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. I want to talk from this thought, looking for a way out.
All right.
Looking for a way out. Listen to the three things in the request here made by Joseph at this time. Think on me. That's one thing he's asking. And then he's saying, show kindness unto me. And then he says, make mention or put in a word for me unto Pharaoh. And if all these things are done, I think the results will be that I'll be taken or delivered out of this house, looking for a way out. I think one of the most frightening aspects concerning the recent CCNY tragedy, and I said yesterday while we were discussing at the Brotherhood meeting, we were discussing these things, and I said we're right on my message because I had that included stuff on the CCNY thing. And I think the frightening aspect concerning that tragedy was the insufficiency of exits or ways out of the building. And while we were seeking to find out what else was wrong, that they oversold it, and that there were those who started the trouble, and while we were looking, those were the hustlers in there and everything, and while we were paying attention to all of that, I think one of the frightening things that we've forgotten about, and that is insufficient exits. Not enough doors out of the place.
Yeah.
Not enough ways out of the building. I think the fire department and police department and those who work with buildings and so on, their concern always is that you can get in a place, but more than that, that you know how to get out. And no matter what place you walk in, I guess it kind of makes us kind of look around to see, now how many ways are there out of here? Should anything transpire? You don't like to think about that, but some of the modern buildings are being built without windows, and air conditioners in, and they're built without windows, and small passageways, and all sorts of things. But you have to think about how to get out of somewhere or someplace. And I think that was the thing that was so frightening, that when everything began to happen, how many ways were there out of the place? For the most natural, instantaneous response to internal danger is to look for a way out. That's the natural response. When danger's there and you're in anything, a situation, a place, is to kind of start looking for a way out. Thus the theme, looking for a way out, immediately draws our attention to exits, windows, doors, detours, or we can take it further, clauses and loopholes in contracts and all sorts of things, trying to find a way out, or any way that will enable one to escape and to leave, and especially an unpleasant situation. How can I get out? Three men from different walks of life, different backgrounds. Three men in our text and our scripture. Three men who might not have come in contact with each other. Two of them might have, working in Pharaoh's palace, they might have. But ordinarily, we cannot assume that these three men would share much together. And yet here they are, placed together in a prison. And it's a special kind of prison. It's where the king's prisoners are bound. It's not the same place as others. It's the prison, where those who have offended the king are. Where those who have trespassed something in a personal sense against the king. Therefore, those who are down in the dungeon, having stolen and other things, they were down there, and you know the old eye for an eye, tooth for tooth that they had down there in Egypt at that time. And those who had stolen were down there and knew their fingers would be chopped off, and those who had been where they should not have been had the danger of having their legs chopped off and all sorts of things. They were in the dungeon. dreary place altogether. But these prisoners were in a house, and they were in a special place which the king could oversee them, and waiting for the king or the Pharaoh's decision as to what to do with these men. And these three men are there: a butler, the chief butler, who works for Pharaoh; a baker, the chief baker, in charge of Pharaoh's table; and a Hebrew named Joseph. A Hebrew named Joseph. A Hebrew who had been bought by the Egyptian traders, having found first in a pit to die, and then bought by the merchants. And he was placed in good company, impressed Pharaoh, until something happened, to the extent that he falsely charged in a personal sense, and therefore cast in the king's prison, or the king's special place, until the king makes a decision as to what's going to happen to them. Each were placed there for different reasons, yet all of them were obsessed with one desire, as you would be in a situation like that, simply looking for a way out. Because in the dungeon there just may be some hope somewhere along the line, but here it was like a waiting place, a station, where they really didn't know what was going to happen to them. Either the king would forgive them and restore them, or the king would just simply order them dead. There would be no jury or anything like that. For the king's law was the law. Pharaoh was in charge. And whatever Pharaoh would say, that would simply be it. The king and Pharaoh are one and the same in Egypt, and ruled in such a way that nobody disputed the king or disputed Pharaoh. And so their fate lie in the hands of Pharaoh. And it's kind of bad just to be in the hands of anybody, and especially as somebody who can order your death just like that. So this is the situation we have before us. But all of them shared one thing, as you would know. They were just looking for a way out. Somehow ever they could get out. The urgency of the moment demanded some kind of collusion or togetherness. In other words, it wasn't a time for separation. It was a time for these men, although they had not chosen it, to get together. And it kind of prepares us for perhaps our service tomorrow, in a sense, that if there is any positive aspect about shared trouble, it is that it forces those involved to work together. Trouble has a way of bringing folk together. Trouble has a way of bringing people who would not ordinarily speak to one another, bring them together. Just let the lights go out in the subway and let that subway train stop for a while. And all of a sudden, even people who didn't like one another, didn't know each other, begin to work together looking for a way out. Looking for a way out. It's like being in a foxhole with somebody. Racism might be important when you're in the States and everything is comfortable for you. But when you get in a foxhole, it doesn't make a difference whether you're black or white. The two of you are there pulling together, trying your best to get out of the situation together. And so trouble does have a positive side. Trouble brings us together. And maybe a little bit of trouble every now and then in our life might be good for us. Might be like a little medicine, kind of help us. Trouble reminds us that we're vulnerable. Reminds us that we're frail. Reminds us that we're not as big as we think we are, or as important as we are. For it makes no difference whether you're rich or poor, black or white, young or old. Trouble doesn't miss anybody. And if you haven't had any trouble, keep living. Trouble is on the way. Yeah? And trouble is not prejudice. Trouble doesn't care who it is. Trouble will knock anybody to their knees. Trouble doesn't make a difference to trouble. Trouble doesn't have that bias feeling. Trouble, the rain, the cloud that stands over your neighbor's door will move to yours after a while. That cloud doesn't discriminate. Trouble doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care, white or black. We all have trouble, and we all have problems. And so that's the positive aspect, I think, about trouble, that it kind of brings all of us together. It links us together arm in arm, black and white, and helps us to realize and understand that if we pull together, trouble won't last always. Something beautiful happened on the steps of of City Hall. I shared it with the Brotherhood. I shared it with the Bible class the other night. But you won't read about it in the paper because the media has a way of only want to read things which are critical and negative. And I guess that's why negativism bothers me sometimes, because some people delight in these things, and we'd rather read the gossip than to read good news and things of that kind. Sometimes people would rather know something bad about you than something good about you. And I think that's problemsome to me. And on the steps of City Hall, inside we had our service and our tribute to Dr. King. The mayor was there, others were there, and I was proud of the Harold Burton Community Choir, Brownsville Community Choir, named after Harold Burton, that Harold Burton Community Children's Choir, whatever it is. Brownsville Community, that's what it is, Children's Choir. And they were there, and they sang beautifully. And Danny Eason directing, and the musicians and all. And we were proud, because when they got through, they said, where are they from? Brooklyn, Brownsville. And we were just proud, those of us from that area, proud of those children singing out of their heart. And Mayor Dickens took a picture with the small one of the little children in front there. And they were beautiful, and we thank God. We have some beautiful black young people in this world. And people need to know that. All of them are not shooting folk and shooting up drugs and whatnot like that. We got some beautiful young people. Just look around in Mount Olive. God has blessed us with some beautiful young people in Mount Olive. And sometimes we need to talk about them and stop worrying about the troublemakers all the time. We keep giving nothing but publicity to the hoodlums, and that's the reason why they delight in that. And we need to encourage our young people who are trying to do something right. And sometimes we have a way of criticizing all, trying to get out of a small bunch of those, and these young people were beautiful. But then we had our service, and then we went outside. Reverend Burton, others were there. We went outside, and after we had gone outside, on the steps was Reverend Al Sharpton and Reverend Mitchell and some of the Muslims and others. They were on the steps of City Hall. And right away, some people felt that this was a threat to the mayor in some kind of way. And one reporter, he took the microphone and put it up to Reverend Sharpton and said, don't you think you're embarrassing the mayor? Reverend Sharpton coolly said, no. Like that, he said, the mayor understands that this service is here. There's a service inside and outside, because Dr. King marched in the cold. He didn't have too many inside services. He had outside services, and we thought we'd symbolize that out here also on the steps. But they kept trying to stir. And we listened to one of the finest speeches coming from Reverend Sharpton that you'll hear, as good as Dr. King's I Have a Dream. And it was a speech to bring us all together. He said, it's time for us to come together. He said, I've got 2 little children. I'm afraid for them. He said, in this society, the way killings and things are going on. A beautiful speech. And then Mayor Dickens came out. He came out and he waved and shook hands, took with all the ministers there and waved at us. And he showed his greetings. And one of the Muslims said, we're with you, Brother Mayor. He said, thank you, like that. And then descended the steps to get into his car and leave. This was working together, a beautiful picture, but not one line of it was in the news, nor on television. Now, if Sharpton been out there cussing and breaking up the steps and whatnot, you would have heard it. It would have interrupted all your programs. You would have had no soap operas, no sports events. All they would have was the ugliness of Al Sharpton and the preachers outside of the steps and the animosity. Somehow or ever, we've not learned to accept good news, and it's terrible to me that when people sit down together, there is more good going on at times than bad, but you only hear the bad. You only hear the bad. There's more sitting down together at the table of brotherhood, but you don't hear that. You only hear when there's some kind of ruckus. I go back in the message. Dave Winfield, a player who used to play for the Yankees, is now with Toronto. He's gone now from one team to the other. And Dave Winfield has a foundation, and that foundation is opening up doors for people and for kids and whatnot to go to school. You don't see one line of it most of the time. The only time you see is when Dave Winfield fusses with somebody or fights with Steinbrenner or something like that. All you hear about from Barkley and Reggie Jackson and black folk are troublesome things. You don't hear the good side of things that are going on, and that's sad. But there is a positive, as I go back, and a positive aspect about trouble. That trouble brings us together. And I think this is what Charlton was saying. He was saying, we have time to lay aside our differences and pull together for humanity. Too many folk are dying now. Too many children are dying. And when little children pick up the fight and begin to fight each other and all sorts of things, then you know that racism has hit the lowest level that it'll ever hit. And you know, hatred now is so that we can't trust each other at all. And there's got to be some pulling together. For if there is no pulling together, we shall all perish together. There's no question about that. There is an automatic pulling together here in the text here as the baker and the butler and Joseph's heart seem to be coming together, thus looking for a way out. Looking for a way out of the difficulty. And you know, looking for a way out is not an easy task, especially when getting to the exit is beyond our control. When we don't control our own destiny. When we're not in charge, when the exit is blocked by red tape, when the exit is blocked by bureaucracy, when the exit is blocked by selfishness and all sorts of things that block the exit, it's not easy to get out. When you got to depend on somebody else opening a door for you, it's not so easy to get out. When you got to depend on somebody else making a way for you, it's not so easy to get out. But it doesn't make any difference who you are or how long you've been here. You're going to have to depend on somebody sometime. Most of us think we're macho and don't need anybody, but we all are going to depend on somebody somewhere along the line. Hence, with these three men here, the way out could only come about if there is an agreement. And the agreement has to be something like this. When it is well with you, then remember me. If you get out, then come back for me. If you see a way out, don't forget about me. If you see a way up the ladder, then reach down and get me. If you see a way out of our difficulty, then why not consider me? Don't get out and close the door and then forget about those who are still trapped. See, a lot of us, that's what's wrong with society. Most of us want to get to the top and get up there by ourselves. Well, pretty lonely up there by yourself. Pretty lonely on the top by yourself. If getting to the top means anything, it ought to mean if I get there, I want to pull somebody else up. Not step on others, but I want to make a way for somebody else. I want to open a door for somebody else along the way. Too long have we been divided as a people. Too long have we been divided as human beings. Too long have we been divided in the church. I get tired of denominations fighting one another. Get tired of certain denominations thinking they're better and holier than others and all. And you and I know, brothers and sisters, it doesn't make any difference what church you go to. It doesn't make any difference what denomination you belong to. None but the pure heart shall see God. Doesn't make any difference who it is. So we got to put aside all these things and start pulling together. Going up the King's Highway can be lonely when you're going by yourself. It's mighty nice to have somebody walking up the King's Highway with you. It's mighty nice to have a prayer partner every now and then. Somebody that will pray along with you. It's mighty nice to have somebody to talk to. It's mighty nice to have somebody to converse with. It's mighty nice to walk with somebody. It's mighty nice to just to know that your heart is knitted with somebody else. It's not a time of pulling away. The chief butler and baker know, along with themselves and Joseph, that if they're going to get out, there's got to be some collusion, some kind of agreement. That if it's well with you, then don't forget about me. If I can help you along the way, when you get in a position, maybe you can help me. That's why it's hard for me to slam the door in somebody's face. I don't know about you, because you never know when you're going to need somebody. You never know. The person you step on today might be the only one to give you something on tomorrow. The person you disregard on today might be the only one. Wife and I were sitting there, we were looking, you know how you just sit and look at television. We sometimes talk and look at television at the same time. We were sitting there looking, and all in the family was on, and all of us know how long this son-in-law stayed with his family. Well, he finally got his little house after the Jeffersons moved out, you know. He moved next door there, and then the first person he didn't want in the house was Archie. Well, you and I know Archie was a mess to live with, but at least he stayed, let him stay under his door, his hair, his roof all that time. And I don't care how bad anybody is. See, I get a lesson or a sermon out of anything. I don't care how bad anybody is. I don't care what they've done. If you sat at their table, put your feet under their table, ate their food, and they let you stay there, when the door opens for you and you got something, you ought to swing wide the door and let them come in. You imagine a meathead doing that? Can you imagine that? No wonder he's called a meathead. Can you imagine him doing something like that? As bad as Archie is, as much as a racist Archie is, he did let the man stay there in his house. Now you might fuss with him and all the rest, but you got people who stay under somebody else's roof. See, a whole lot of young people talking about I'm moving out. Well, move out then, because you got to take whatever goes on under the roof. Some man come out, I don't like my mother-in-law. Well, stop living with her then, because she's providing for you. You don't care for her, get out on your own then. You don't care for her. You don't make the rules. You don't make the rules and regulation in somebody else's house. Joseph and the butler and the baker knew that they were in Pharaoh's house. And when you're in somebody else's house and trying to get out, the least you can do is try to behave. Pharaoh, and they didn't try to break out. The only thing they said was, if you get out before I do, don't forget about me. If I can help you today, you might be able to help me tomorrow. That's the way it goes, isn't that right? Everybody's not going to be on top all the time. I don't care. And that's why I say the young folk will make fun of elderly people. Well, if you keep living, you're going to get old too. And you talk about they old and slow, you're going to be old and slow. And you talk about they can't see, that's right, and you're going to be like that too. Just keep on living, and the same thing, what goes around comes around. So somebody got to take time out. Somebody got to take time out with somebody. Because somebody took time out with you. Oh, hallelujah. I wish I could just think about all the mothers and fathers who are living lonely in nursing homes and nobody go to see. It's not so bad to be in a nursing home. Sometimes you just can't take care of another person. I'm not knocking nursing homes. Some of them are very nice, but at least you ought to go see the folk. You ought not just put them there to die. You ought to go in to see them and drop them a card or pick up the telephone or walk in and see them, because the person that rocked the cradle when you were in it, when you didn't know one day from the next day, that's the person there. Now, all these kids talk about, oh, my mother makes me sick. Well, you made her sick. No question about that. My mother get on my nerves. You don't have any nerves when it comes to your mother or father. What kind of nerves you got? You wouldn't even be where you are now. You wouldn't even be where you are now. Talk about your nerves. What are your nerves? You don't know what those parents went through to bring you where you are. You don't know how many nights they gave their food up so you could eat. You don't know how many days they stayed here and so they could take care of you. Well, it's your time now. It's your time now, and everything goes around. If it's well with you, don't forget about me. Well, let me tune in now and bring it on home now. Tune in with me and pick up the gloom of three men looking for a way out. One is there because he's falsely accused. He's just a Hebrew. The other two are there because they've done something wrong. Obviously, they offended Pharaoh. I don't know what it is. Legend says that the baker gave Pharaoh something that almost became poisonous. Unbeknown to himself, somebody from his staff messed up, and somebody else said the butler got out of hand and served the wrong wine at the wrong time. I don't know what it was. Whatever it was, it offended Pharaoh. Pharaoh threw the chief butler and baker in jail and waited to bring about his decision. In the meantime, somebody else comes in the picture. God moves in a mysterious way. The mysterious way is that you never know where God's servants are going to be. But one thing about it, when God's servants get there, the picture changes. When God has somebody that God can depend on, the whole picture changes. God has a way of slipping God folk in the most peculiar places. You don't know why you got there. The job you're working on now, you don't even know why you're there. You may be there and you may be surrounded by all sorts of things, but God may have put you there for a purpose. You never know in the walk of life while you're there. God moves his his people around and puts them in places where he can use them when he needs them. Said to Esther, Mordecai said, perhaps you come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Placed in the kingdom that God might use you. We pop up in peculiar places as God's people. For you never know when God's getting ready to work a miracle. And God can best work a miracle through God's own people. How this young Hebrew got there, nobody really knows, but he got there anyhow. He's a long way from home. Brothers have deserted him. They know where his father is. He's down in Egypt. He's in a jail. He's falsely accused by Potiphar's wife. He's there all by himself seemingly, but never by himself, because back there in the preceding chapter, when you read it, you'll see, but the Lord was with Joseph. Doesn't say anything about the chief butler or the baker, but God was with Joseph. One of the things, the distinguishing factor about the life of a Christian is God will never leave you. I don't care how rough the road might get and how dark and gloomy the way is, God will never leave you. Go in the operating room if you don't believe me, and you'll find out that God will be there. Get down sometime in the valley of depression, and you look up, the Lord will be by your side. God promised never to leave us, never to forsake us. He'll be with us no matter where we are. Put us on the Isle of Patmos, and God will be with us. Put us in a fiery furnace, and God will step in and take the heat out of the flame. Put us in a lion den, and God will slap the mouths of the lion and make them sleep all night long. I don't care where you put us, God will make a way for us. No matter what it is, God will take care of God's own, because God loves his own. And no matter who you are or where you are, you never have to worry when you got God on your side. Let the ship go down, God will rescue you. Let the storms come, God will take you through the storm. Let the wind blow, God will take you through the wind. No matter what happens in life, God will be with God's people. Bible said they put him in prison, but the Lord was with Joseph. Tune into the gloom of three men. How are we going to get out of here? And all of a sudden, they lay down to sleep, and two of them pop up with dreams. We've had dreams now, but what are we going to do with it? The ancient belief was that if you dreamed, you needed somebody to interpret the dream. If you had nobody around to interpret the dream, that simply meant that you didn't know the message that was being conveyed. And people believed in dreams. The baker and the butler both had dreams, but there was nobody around they thought to interpret. And at that time, Joseph said, does not the interpretation of dreams belong to God? Cannot God interpret all dreams? Cannot God make a way? They looked at him and startled, and all of a sudden they realized that this Hebrew boy was planted there for a purpose. The dreams had now come, and they thought they had nobody to interpret them, but God had somebody fixed in there. That's what I love about God. He'll always have somebody there. A car breaks down on a highway, people are stranded, and then an angel of help comes along. Alvin Sharpton tells this story. He tells the story about how when he was stabbed in Bensonhurst. And he was stabbed in Bensonhurst. He said while he was stabbed in Bensonhurst, he said they rushed him to the hospital. While he was in the hospital, he came out and told them in the service they had for him at Concord. He said, an angel visited me. He said, angel visited me. So when I looked up, the angel visited me, took me back to my background as a boy preacher. But there was something wrong with the angel. The angel didn't look angelic. The angel looked dirty and cracked and worn. And he said, how can you be an angel? He said, well, I'm worn because I've been working a long time. So what do you mean I've been working? He said, I've been rescuing folk a long time. He said, I was there when Abraham almost gave his son on Mount Moriah. So I was there as I got done. These scars you see is when I stepped in the fiery furnace to get out Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But you see these mic boxes when the lion tried to get me in the lion den. He said, I look scarred now because the other day when you took that knife wound, he said, I was there. I was there to take the force of that knife wound. He said, I was there when they stabbed Martin Luther King. And on Calvary, I got pierced in the side. An angel is always there. That's why I don't worry about it, Jerry, when the load is heavy, an angel comes. Sometime in the midnight hour, I toss and turn my wife, so what's the matter with you, can't sleep? That's why I got the church on my mind. So but it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. God's making a way for us. Angel comes down and says you don't have to worry about it. But Al is right. He's a tarnished angel. He's tarnished because he's been through the floods. He's been through the fire. He's been through hard times. And so God has a way of placing an angel at the right place and then placing a servant in the right place. Both the baker and the butler dream. And Joseph said, tell me your dream. And when the butler got through talking about those vines, he said, don't worry about it. In 3 days, like the 3 vine, you're going to be back in Pharaoh's court serving him. He said, there's only one thing I want to tell you. When it's well with you, don't forget about me. If you found the way out, if I'm giving you encouragement, if I've helped you along the way, when you get inside of Pharaoh, say a word for me. Put in a word for me. In other words, recommend me. When you get in there, say a word for me. Well, you know the rest of the story. The baker's dream was not a positive one. It was one where in 3 days he'd be lifted up and the baker lost his head. But the butler went on back to the palace. And then the Bible says he forgot all about Joseph. Isn't that just like some of us? Get the good out of somebody and then forget all about them. Get all you can and then trample upon them. I think the reason why we got to visit the sick, Big and Newspaper and I were discussing it, the reason why you got to go see those shut-in folk, because they came when they could. They did for Mama Ollie when they could. They sang on the choir when they could. They praised God when they could. Now they're shut off, Mama, but we can't forget about them, because if we stand on any foundation, we stand on a foundation that somebody else built. We stand firmly on the foundation. Somebody said you mentioned Reverend Brown's name so much. Why? Because he paved the way. If there wasn't a Reverend Brown, wouldn't be a Reverend Crayton. If there wasn't a Reverend Brown, wouldn't be a Reverend Williams. If there wasn't a Reverend Brown, wouldn't be a Reverend Barnett. If there wasn't a Reverend Brown, there couldn't be a Reverend Arthur Crayton. Somebody got to go first. Somebody got to pave the way. Reverend Brown could have stood in the way. He didn't have to introduce me to churches. He didn't have to introduce me to preachers. He didn't have to do it, but he made a way for me. For when it is well with you, don't forget about me. But the Bible said the butler forgot. But God moves in a mysterious way. God had one more miracle and got that old tarnished angel out there one more time. Angel staggered out there again. So I got to send you somewhere. I got to send you down in Pharaoh's bedroom. I got to give Pharaoh a dream. And when Pharaoh dreams and nobody can find the interpretation, then maybe the butler will remember when I did what you did for him. So Pharaoh had a dream and upset the whole palace. When he did that, then the butler said, now I remember my fault. There was a Hebrew in the jail. He was in the same prison that I was. And I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I had offended Pharaoh, and I told him I would remember him. But I forgot all about him. And so the door opened up, and Joseph found his way out. I come to tell you this morning, there is a way out. Somebody in trouble right now and looking for a way out. I come to tell you there is a way out. I don't care how long you've been sick. I don't care how long you've been troubled. I don't care how many burdens you have. I don't care how dark the road is. God is evil. I know he's evil. He is evil. God is evil. Just a little while ago, I went to the bedside of a man I loved to death. A man who was a deacon in Holy Trinity and served under me. I baptized this man, brought him in the church. His family is in the church. And I went to his bedside. Well, the first time I got there, his sister was there, and he was weak in bed. And I looked over, I said, Deacon, how do you feel? He lifted up his eyes and said, oh, I feel all right. He always did talk low, but he whispered out, I'm okay now. And he held my hand, and I prayed with him. And he said, I'm a little weak. And the sister said, he's a little tired, and we come to stay around the clock. But I thought about that man. I thought about him because in the rain he was there. If I had 3 people in church, he was one of them. If I had 2 deacons going with me, he was one. If I needed somebody, I could get on the phone, and that deacon would be there. So I took all of my planned schedule and told my wife I'm going to Amityville to be by the deacon who stood by my side. and he held my hand. He said, God had made a way. And then his wife said, Reverend, you didn't have to come all the way out here. I said, I would go to the moon for somebody, because when it was well with him, he didn't forget about me. Somebody needs to know right now that you can get out, you can crawl out, you can slide out, you can run out, because God will, God will, God will, God will, I don't know about you, he's been my doctor, he's been my lawyer, my burden bearer, heart fixer, looking for a way out your financial troubles, talk to God. He's got an angel mapping out a plan to get you out. Now the angel look a little tarnished because the angel been working a long time trying to get folk out of trouble. But there's always one more, just one more miracle. And that one may just be for you. There's just one more. Maybe there's just one more blessing. But don't give up. That just may be for you. And you can find your way out. Stand on your feet this morning. Tell Congress, if we're looking for a way out, we got to look to the way maker. Go tell those who make the laws that if you're looking for a way out of difficulty, you got to look to the way maker. A way out of drugs, alcohol, trouble, trials, unpleasant situations. God will point you out. There is an exit. There is an exit. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. One of the mothers of our church said, Reverend, God made a way. I wanted to get out where I was so I could be closer to my church. Said, didn't know how I was going to do it. She said, but God opened the door. Oh, there's an exit to your troubles right now. There's an exit to your trials. Now you can't see it because it's blocked. But God has an angel who will unblock the way. Now I just want to say one thing to you and I close. But when it's well with you, oh hallelujah, don't forget about that other person. When it's well with you, don't forget about somebody else, especially somebody who paved the way for you. If God gets you out, he's not just getting you out to shout the victory. No, he's getting you out to look over your shoulder and see who you can pull out next. Oh, hallelujah. I'm going to close now. We got a young lady in this church. She's been through the streets. She's been through the gutter. She knows what drugs and disappointments are. But God brought out. And you know what she's doing now? She's bringing somebody else. Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I told her mother the other day, and I told her father, I said, I thank God for her. God sent her to me the right time. Here I was wrestling with a problem that even I couldn't handle. Oh, hallelujah. And God let this young woman go through it and then come back and pull. We got 3 young ladies going through it now because she reached back. When it is well with you. Well, hallelujah. I gotta sit down now. I like to tell some story, you know. When it's well with you, don't forget about me. Hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Doors of the church open. There could be somebody here. What would have happened this morning if Brother Leroy Crayton, Sister Crayton's responsible, Brother Jenkins, if we hadn't opened the door for Chanel? See what I'm talking about? God's not here to direct this. But if God gives you a talent, you see what I'm talking about? When it's well with you. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Don't forget. And Janelle will pass that on to another child. These little children I call Gigi and Smoochie, they'll be up directing next. Well, hallelujah! Hallelujah! Listen, but you never feel depressed. Every time she comes to church and see this young man on the organ, she ought to be uplifted. Oh, hallelujah! Hallelujah! When it's well with you. I'm through. There's a church open. There's a church open. Somebody's looking for a way out. Somebody's looking for a way out. Why not come to Jesus? He'll show you the way. I'm going to church. You better come back later. Carry back to the point of Christian spirit. God help you to come.